So then, today is a pretty massive day for Warzone because Raven is making some absolutely huge changes to the weapons as part of their Season 3 Reloaded update, and I'm not kidding. Some of these changes are actually going to reshape how you spec out your weapons in Warzone from here on out. I've got all the details in this video, so you've come to the right place. But so you don't miss future info in the future, then subscribe to the channel right now. And before we go on, I've got a quick sponsored message from Nvidia, because tomorrow I'm taking part in an event with Stod to win you guys some awesome prizes. Warzone now supports DLSS, which uses AI to boost your in-game frame rates, whilst also generating sharper and more detailed images. That extra performance means your RTX GPU can play at higher resolutions and higher graphics settings. And Warzone now also supports Nvidia Reflex. This tool optimizes your system latency to lower the time it takes from a mouse click to movement taking place on your screen, and that gives you a more responsive experience. If you've got a compatible GeForce GPU, you can turn on Reflex in the settings and you can feel the benefits. And now, this event, Friday 21st of May at 4 PM UK time, myself and Stod will be streaming and competing against 2 German streamers to win 2 GeForce RTX 3080 PCs to give away to you guys. If you click the link in the description right now, you'll find a tweet from me. Go and reply to that tweet and answer the question in it and include hashtag Warzone DLSS in your reply, and you'll help unlock more PC game codes, XP codes for Warzone, and 3 GeForce RTX GPUs to be given away in the streams. Okay, let's dive in. First of all, we'll talk about some of the individual weapons. Raven has listed 6 in the patch notes. The AK-74U is first, with it being highlighted as a weapon that performed beyond what you might expect from an SMG. The neck damage multiplier has been increased from 1 to 1.4, and the sprint to fire speed increased by 20%, so those are nice little buffs for the gun. However, bullet velocity has been reduced by 15%, and the max damage range reduced by 25%. This means the 74U is now less powerful at range, but it handles more like an SMG at close to mid-range, with that extra damage to the neck and faster transition for firing on an enemy. Next is the PPSH. This got a buff in the last patch, and now it's getting another one. Raven wanted to push this one even further. Max damage has been increased from 27 to 28, and the max damage range has been increased by 3.8%. According to Raven, these changes will push the PPSH directly into that high-tier SMG category, and it's going to make it one of the best SMGs that you can use in Warzone right now. Then we move on to the snipers. Sniper Rifle Charlie is the first one, that's the M82 Sniper. It's getting a pretty big buff here. Bullet velocity is being increased by 14%. Extremity multipliers, so that's for the arms and the legs, those have been increased from 0.9 to 1. But to compensate for that, the fire rate has been slightly reduced. Raven wants the M82 to feel more like a heavy-duty sniper, because it kind of looks like one, but didn't really perform like one before this update, so now they've almost completely changed it to make it feel more heavy. Then the LW3, this is one of my favourite snipers in Warzone. The aiming stability has been increased in general. This combined with the previously buffed ADS speed attachments, like the Serpent Wrap, and the lasers that we'll talk about in a second, because those got buffed in this patch. This is going to mean the LW3 becomes a more versatile option, and you can get faster ADS speeds than you could before. The K31, the newest sniper on the block, that's being buffed as well. Flinch resistance is being greatly increased, so you won't get as much kickback when you're scoped in and somebody shoots at you when you're using the K31. The ADS speed is being increased, shortening the time that it takes for you to fully ADS. I know that doesn't quite work in some people's heads, so if you've got a faster ADS speed, it's actually a shorter ADS time. It does make sense. And then the aiming stability has been increased as well, just like the LW3. Raven says this is to make the K31 feel like the lightweight, fast-handling, high-skill weapon that they initially intended. You have to go for headshots with the K31 to get a one-shot down, but it now feels, I think, a bit more like the Kar98, but just with slightly less bullet velocity. Then the ZRG makes it into the patch notes as well. This one has been changed a lot, I'm not kidding, and it's been positioned as the proper heavy-duty sniper in the game to match the 20mm rounds that it fires. Bullet penetration has been increased, so you'll be able to shoot people through more cover than you could before, so maybe it's now extended to like concrete walls and stuff like that. We'll have to test that out, but that's one of the key features that the ZRG had before, but now it's even more powerful in that area. The upper torso damage multiplier is up from 1.25 to 1.7, lower torso from 1.15 to 1.25, extremities from 0.9 to 1, and then the downsides. ADS speed has been decreased by 4%, bullet velocity decreased by 2%, movement speed down by 2%, and ADS movement speed down by 1%. So the ZRG, or ZRG, whatever you want to call it, now outputs more damage across the board thanks to those multiplier increases, but in terms of movement and readiness and snappiness, it's just not as good. It's slower and more cumbersome than it used to be. Okay, so that's specific weapons out of the way. Now we're going to move on to some attachments in general, and first up, the flash guard muzzle on Cold War weapons. The vertical recoil will now be slightly increased from what it was before. Then the big one, the standard suppressor. So not the GRU suppressor, the agency suppressor, or the wrap suppressor, which is right down the bottom of the list. I'm talking about the initial suppressor, the one that's higher up the list that you unlock earlier. Raven is completely switching up how this attachment works. These suppressors now increase your bullet velocity as opposed to reducing it. It increases your ADS speed and your sprint to fire speed as well. So this means that the standard suppressor, in my opinion, is now a viable option to use on some of your loadout weapons. Raven says this will work really well on SMGs that don't need the damage range buff that you get from the agency suppressor, but instead you can now use the normal suppressor and you'll get snappier performance and a buff to bullet velocity at the same time. So that'll make your SMG more lethal in close quarters. And you could also add it to sniper rifles to reduce your ADS time alongside a nice bullet velocity buff as well. So just want to say, GG's to Raven here on making the standard suppressor more viable. Before this, I would never have considered using it on any of my guns, but now that it's been added, I can see a lot of people using these on the close range or mid-range SMGs, and definitely the snipers if you're looking for faster ADS time. Next is the laser attachments. We've got a bunch of changes here. The SOF target designator. This no longer increases your damage range, but instead increases aiming stability and ADS movement speed. The Ember sighting point. Again, no more damage range increase, but instead it massively buffs your aiming stability, more so than the target designator, and it increases your ADS speed. The steady aim laser now increases ADS speed, but doesn't decrease your hipfire spread anymore. And the SWAT 5mm laser no longer decreases hipfire spread or ADS spread, but instead increases aiming stability and ADS speed. So this means that Black Ops Cold War weapons now have laser attachments that are similar to the Modern Warfare TAC laser, which gives you a shorter ADS time than it did before. And that's great news in my opinion, because something that's been missing from some of the snipers from Black Ops Cold War in Warzone was the ability to shorten your ADS time by having a laser on there. Now there's going to be options for you to do that, which is great. And then lastly for attachments, the Airborne Elastic Wrap, or the GRU Elastic Wrap. It's having its aiming stability increased. So this is something that you'll want to use for your longer range weapons like LMGs or long range assault rifles. Now that's a huge number of changes to attachments and weapons in Warzone right now. It completely changes up how the snipers work, and adding a new muzzle option in the form of the standard suppressor, I think that's going to change up people's SMG and close range AR builds quite a lot. If you take a muzzle that gives you bullet velocity and shortening your ADS time and sprint to fire speeds, that's going to be a pretty big change to some of those guns. You're not always going to have to run the agency or the GRU suppressor on every single gun anymore. You can use another suppressor if you want to. Now there is one more change that we do need to mention here, and it is a big one: stopping power. The spawn rate of stopping power is being massively reduced across all Warzone game modes, so it will be a much rarer item in Warzone now. Raven has put out a little paragraph on this, so I'll read it to you. Given stopping power's efficacy and lack of counterplay options, we felt its power level was at odds with its availability. We want to create more scenarios where a measured choice about how and when to utilize field upgrades is not just rewarded, but encouraged. There was hardly an incorrect way to apply stopping power, which we felt took away from the satisfaction of optimal or strategic use. Our hope by drastically reducing its presence within Warzone is that we introduce a small strategy-based control. Those who loot efficiently increase their odds of finding it. Now this is a change that I've wanted in Warzone, I'm not kidding, for literally months. and it's finally happened. There was never a way to counter stopping power, and the only way you could tell someone had killed you with it was if you glimpsed those red tracers that were being fired at you, but those at the same time could be confused with certain blueprints that had red tracers on them, or if you caught the damage going through your plates on the HUD down in the left-hand corner. Now that the spawn rate is that much lower, the chances of someone using stopping power against you is much lower, and that's going to get rid of a lot of those frustrating moments. I'm actually really happy that they've gone and made this change. Although, I kind of wish they'd made some changes to dead silence at the same time. But hey, one of the two has been massively nerfed, and that's great in my opinion. So those are the major Warzone changes happening with this patch. I like almost all of them, and if you want to read the full patch notes, I'll leave them linked down below in the description. I can't wait to get stuck into Warzone matches later with the guys today. And of course, tomorrow, I'm doing that event with Stod where you guys can win some Nvidia gear. So make sure you come along and support that. I'll be streaming on YouTube around sort of 3:30, 4 o'clock tomorrow, and you'll be able to watch and see if we end up winning. I think it's a kill race, so we'll be going up against 2 German streamers to see if we can win. But let me know what you think about all of these changes down below in the comments, and just a big thanks for watching and all your support recently. It's been absolutely amazing. But yes, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.